Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is November 29th, 2022. We're in the New Testament, and we are in the book of John, and we're going to read chapter 19, verse 17 to 43. All right, so John just took us through the trial and showed us what a mockery that was. Now he's getting to the actual crucifixion. Now, his story differs a little bit than some of the other Gospels. There's a bunch of reasons why that may have happened. I think the best one is probably, hey, he's been up all night. He's been kind of hoping that someone's going to come out and be a champion for Jesus and say, hey, you know what, this is wrong, we shouldn't do this, but that did not happen. So he knows Jesus is now doomed. He's going to be crucified. Jesus has walked out with the cross on his shoulder, and that's probably when John decides, you know what, I've seen enough here. I need to go get his mother, and I need to go get her to Golgotha, because that's where they're going to end up. And that's when we see John again in his story. We see an actual conversation that Jesus has from the cross to John, telling him, hey, that's your mother, take care of her. And John says, I will. A little set of different last words. Again, thinking of the perspective of John, now he's consoling Mary, Jesus' mother, so maybe he missed some of it, maybe he doesn't hear some of it, maybe he just doesn't think that's important that was in there because it's in the rest of the Bible. I don't know. We don't know. He just has the vinegar. He wants a drink, and then he says, okay, that's it. I'm done. And he dies. So that's the important thing John wants us to see, is this was still Jesus in control here, even right up to his death. It was under his order and his plan. He didn't die until he was ready. He didn't die until it was time for him to die. At this point, the Jews from the Sanhedrin finally remember, oh, shoot, we're supposed to be religious and really pious, and it's going to be the Sabbath soon. We can't have all these people hanging up on crosses. We need to have them taken down. So they give the order to go out and break their legs, speed up their deaths. When they get to Jesus, he's already dead. And to prove that he's dead, a Roman soldier takes his spear and jams it up through his side, which would have went through his lungs into his heart. And there's a little sac around your heart that's got a clear fluid in it, and we know that that's pierced because we see blood and water come out. That's what that signifies. So without a doubt, Jesus is dead. There's no way that he could have survived that stab with the spear. They take him down. Again, the Sabbath is coming, so they wrap him up. They put some herbs on him to keep the smell down, and they put him in a tomb and roll the stone on to block it off. And they're going to, after the Sabbath is over, the intention is to come back and finish burying him properly. And that's where this section ends. So let's go ahead and we're going to read John chapter 19, verse 17 to 43. Carrying the cross by himself, he went out to what is called Place of the Skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. There they crucified him and two others with him, one to either side, with Jesus in the middle. Pilate also had a sign made and put on the cross. It said, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Many of the Jews read this sign because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. So the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, don't write the King of the Jews, but what that he said, I am King of the Jews. Pilate replied, what I have written, I have written. When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, part for each soldier. They also took the tunic, which was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, let's not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who gets it. This happened so that the scripture might be fulfilled that says, they divided my clothes among themselves, and they cast lots for my clothing. This is what the soldiers did. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple he loved standing there, he said to his mother, woman, here is your son. Then he said to the disciple, here is your mother. And from that hour the disciple took her into his home. After this, when Jesus knew that everything was now finished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, he said, I'm thirsty. A jar full of sour wine was sitting there, so they fixed a sponge full of sour wine on a hyssop branch and held it up to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. Then bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. Since it was the preparation day, the Jews did not want the bodies to remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a special day. They requested that Pilate have the men's legs broken and that their bodies be taken away. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man and of the other one who had been crucified with him. When they came to Jesus, they did not break his legs, since they saw that he was already dead. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out. He who saw this has testified, so that you also may believe. His testimony is true, and he knows he is telling the truth. For these things happened so that the scripture would be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken. Also, another scripture says they will look at the one they pierced. After this, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might remove Jesus' body. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and took his body away. Nicodemus, who had previously come to him at night, also came, bringing a mixture of about 75 pounds of myrrh and aloe. They took Jesus' body and wrapped it in linen clothes with the fragrant spices, according to the burial custom of the Jews. There was a garden in the place where he was crucified. A new tomb was in the garden. No one had yet been placed in it. They placed Jesus there because of the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby. May God bless the reading of his word, and may God bless you. Bye.